Hey friends, Ash here. Hope that you're doing well. Today I've got for you guys 12 different fragrances that according to you are massively underrated. So these are either gonna be fragrances that more people should know about because they're fantastic, amazing value, just great scents overall, or alternatively, maybe they're fragrances that are well known, but they get hated on a lot for reasons that they don't deserve. And they're actually fantastic in spite of what all the haters say. Everything I talk to you guys about here today is going to be linked in the description below. And if you want to be featured in a future video, check out the community tab of the YouTube channel because there's usually a question on there where you can leave your answer or upvote other people's. Let's get started. The first fragrance comes to us from AJ Mex 91. And the fragrance that he chose actually came up a few different times that I saw. It's Coach Green, one of the best in the Coach line, he says. Which, to be fair, is not that hard to be one of the best in the Coach line because it only has 4 fragrances. Which means that you could technically pick up one of the Coach fragrances and be like, dude, this is easily one of the top 3 Coach for Men fragrances. Which sounds really good until you realize there's only 4. And then you go, oh. Okay. Coach Green, to be fair, is one that gets overlooked a little bit when you compare it to the original Coach for Men. That's the one that typically gets talked about the most. And it makes sense why. That one's really cheap, extremely versatile, easy to wear, kind of like an everyday blue fragrance that is not gonna break the bank. Coach Green is a little bit more hit or miss, I feel like. For some people, it is absolutely stunning. For other people, they're gonna go, shampoo? Is that what's going on here? Kind of shampoo? So green is the name. Green is also the note breakdown. Kiwi is one of the main notes in here that people are really gonna gravitate towards. That's in the top along with bergamot. Then as it dries down, you have rosemary and geranium, gives it a very aromatic feel, also extremely clean. Like I said, some people are gonna pick up kind of a soapy shampoo-esque vibe to it. Other people are gonna get more of that like slightly tropical, very sweet, green, fresh, fruity vibe off the top. As it dries down, you have cedar and moss in the base, pretty simplistic note breakdown overall. And although it's not really the greatest way to simply break this one down, you could think of this as a little bit being in the style, like the vague style of Luna Rossa Carbon, Dior Sauvage, something like that, with a little bit of that Greenleaf from Parfums de Marly vibe tossed in, you know, kind of put into a blender and mixed together. Price on it is pretty good, and I would imagine as time goes on, that price is going to drop even further because most of the Coach fragrances for men are quite affordable, and that can make this one a super attractive fragrance if you're looking for something with versatility for spring, summer, and early fall. Then we have one from Justin Maxwell, PP5BX, who says, for the price, I'd have to say Guess 1981 Indigo. Smells wonderful and unique, spring and summer staple, and always gets attention. So this one is about 20 bucks at discounters. Sometimes you can find it for a little bit less, so you might be able to find it, 18, 19, something like that, but roughly 20 bucks is what you're gonna be looking at. So yeah, when he brings up for the price, that's what he's talking about. It is cheap. And the fragrance itself has a really interesting note breakdown for a cheap fragrance, because a lot of the times when you get a cheap scent, it has a pretty basic note breakdown. This one though switches stuff up. It has fig as one of the main notes, but also coconut. Along with that fig and coconut, you also have iris, you have lavender, oak moss, bergamot, tonka, cedar, and musk. Now, one thing you might think of when you see fig plus coconut is, oh, does it smell like Le Beau Paradise Garden? No, it doesn't, and it really shouldn't. I mean, this came out before Le Beau Paradise Garden, but it does have some vague similarities to Philosopos from Diptyque, so it's kind of roughly in that style, like a much cheaper version of that to an extent. It's a little bit green, definitely sweet, has a bit of a sunscreen vibe to it that's gonna be from the coconut here, but it is definitely something that at this price point stands out against most everything else out there. Spring and summer men's fragrances, it's definitely unique for 20 bucks. The performance is not great, so do keep that in mind. Not that you're probably expecting a $20 Guess summertime fragrance to have amazing performance, but it definitely doesn't. So be aware of that. Don't be surprised when you spray this on and 4 hours later you want to spray it on again. But it really is a solid cheap fragrance that gets overlooked a lot of the time. And I also want to point out just in general that Guess at that lower price point has some really solid fragrances. So if you start digging into their catalog, you can find some stuff there that's really solid that most people are not gonna be wearing. So don't get me wrong, some of it is trash. Some of it is total trash. But along with that trash, there's some stuff that is surprisingly very good. The next fragrance comes to us from Gliedkopf. I don't know, man. Gliedkopf. Gliedkopf. Maybe that's what it is. Their choice is Zadig and Voltaire. This is him. My signature for this winter, and it's definitely not my last bottle. So this one can be had for a pretty good price. I think it's usually right around 50 bucks or so. So not that bad. And it's kind of one of those like, if you know deals, right? So for people who know and for who this works for, they love this stuff. And most people don't really know about it. If we're talking about just your average person, they're not gonna be wearing This Is Him, right? So in terms of the note breakdown, it's pretty simple. You have black pepper, grapefruit, incense, vanilla, and sandalwood. It's a woody, incensey fragrance, a little bit creamy, nice sweetness from the vanilla that's not overwhelming. It's a classy fragrance, one that could easily be worn to a more formal occasion, but it's good casually also. Quality for the price point, very good as well. There's a lot to love about the fragrance. And like I said, it's got vanilla in there. It's got a little sweetness, but it's not overtly sweet. So if you want something a little different from all the other fragrances that are coming out nowadays that are just like powerhouse sweet bombs, this could be a really nice alternative. Jose YX7LQ says, Polo Red Parfum, my personal signature scent. Everyone around me loves it, can wear it anywhere, plus it's cheap and can easily get a 4.2 ounce for around 50 bucks. Will always be in my collection. And I do like the way this one smells. Polo Red Parfum is solid, easy to wear, daytime or nighttime, doesn't matter. Love the opening. So in that opening, off the top, you have blood orange, bergamot, and pink pepper. There's also, interestingly enough, absinthe and orris in the mid. Not that you necessarily get a whole heck of a lot of it, but both of those notes are there, along with lavender, and then musk, cedar, and opopanax in the base. The opening, unfortunately, is a little bit short-lived. Like I just said, it smells absolutely amazing. Reminds me a little bit of Polo Red Intense, which is now discontinued. Polo Red Intense and Polo Red Extreme, both of those were my favorite Polo Reds. Both are gone now. But something like this helps scratch that itch for me, and it's the type of scent that really you could wear year-round. Like during the summer, in the evening, this is a perfect choice, spring, fall, winter, day or night, good compliment puller. And Polo Red definitely is not an unknown fragrance, right? Like people know about Polo, they know about Polo Red. But if we're talking about how much Polo Red Parfum gets talked about, not a whole heck of a lot, but it is very solid. It gets the job done, and you can easily go through a bottle of that stuff, no problem. Before we hop to the next fragrance, guys, here are some codes you can use to save money across different websites, and I do want to point out that the JOMASHOP codes are a-changing. As usual, they only work within the app, but I wanted to make you aware that those codes are changing, and that is as of January 18th. If you're watching this way in the future, who knows, man? Who knows what's going on? But those JOMASHOP codes are changing. All the other codes for Max Aroma, Fragflex, the perfume box, etc., they stay the same. So if you shop at any of those sites, use those codes if you want to save a little money. Next fragrance comes to us from Garrett Mercier 9186, Valentino Uomo Eau de Toilette, the original, not born in Roma, the OG. And this one came up a bunch of times actually. Valentino Uomo was getting some love. He says, one of the best gourmand scents out there and not too sweet. And surprisingly, has a fresher take. Absolute stunner and unique and totally underrated. So this is one of those ones where if you're talking about with the public in general, is it underrated? Yeah, obviously. I mean, it got no love. It got replaced by Born in Roma, which is now blowing up. People love Born in Roma. Nothing wrong with that. Like Born in Roma Intense, fantastic. But the original Valentino Uomo did not really take off in a huge way. Now, if we're talking underrated, like in the fragrance community or whatever, probably not underrated because he gets a lot of love from people who are really into fragrances, just like Valentino Uomo Intense. But like I said, if we're talking what's being bought at Sephora, Macy's, Ulta, Nordstrom, wherever, is it underrated? Yeah. So this one's probably gonna remind you a little bit of Dior Homme. Not Dior Homme 2020, Dior Homme Original, or Dior Homme Intense. I guess that'd be an easier one to point out, right? In terms of notes, you've got bergamot off the top, also myrtle, interestingly enough, chocolate in the mid, along with hazelnut, coffee, leather, and cedar. Maybe this one's a little bit ahead of its time, you know, with the hazelnut note in here, because nowadays you've got chestnut, hazelnut, toffee, caramel, all kinds of notes like that, really, really in vogue. When this came out, not quite as much. It also has kind of an iris flair to it. That's where you're gonna pick up that resemblance to Dior Homme Original. Has a great nuttiness to it. Like he said, a little bit gourmand, kind of lightly fresh off the top when you spray it on. Another one that's amazing for fall, winter, spring, day, night, doesn't matter. Oh, such a good one. Next one is really good too. Head Trauma, 7663. Prada Amber Pour Homme gets no love. One of my favorites all time. Yeah, Prada Amber is good. It's a little harder to find nowadays than it used to be. Also, a little bit more expensive than it used to be, but you can still find it. So that's good. This is one of those ones you forget how good it is. You haven't smelled it for a long time, and then you smell it again and you just go, oh, sick. Now this is one of those fragrances where you have to like soapy, clean scents. If you don't like that, you're not gonna dig this. So, you know, Prada, really well known for this, but Prada L'Homme, for example, a little powdery, soapy, clean. This is kind of what set the stage for Prada L'Homme that came afterward. When you first spray it on, you have neroli in there, a little bit of citrus. That's where you're gonna get that soapy, clean, slightly powdery freshness when you first spray it on. Then as it dries down, you get the amber part of the fragrance that comes out. So it has myrrh, it has saffron, a good amount of musk, orange blossom, geranium, vanilla, tonka, just a lot of different things going on here. For this type of fragrance, it has solid longevity, sticks around for a long time. Also the intense version, very good. So if you can find Prada Amber Intense, comes in a blacked out bottle, that stuff is really, really, really nice. It's not as fresh as this one, but if you want a bit of a deeper impact, deeper impact. What are we talking about here? I'm talking about fragrance. Sounds like I'm talking about meteors. Asteroids. But if you want a fragrance that has more deepness to it, more richness, more of that myrrh, patchouli in there as well, check out the Intense. Ethan Spence 7102 is up next. He says, Boss Bottled Pacific. Shouldn't be saying this since I'm trying to gatekeep it. Honestly, you probably don't need to gatekeep it because it's discontinued. So there's that. This one was a limited edition release that actually I really, really liked when you could find it. Nowadays, basically eBay is where you're gonna find it. So people selling bottles on there. And now I'm not saying it's never gonna become available again at discounters. It's entirely possible that at some point, who knows when, but that at some point, you know, some of these pop up again. You know, somebody finds stock somewhere, sells it onto a discounter, and boom, 100 bottles pop up for sale at Fragrance Buy or something. That's happened before, wouldn't surprise me. Is it something that's gonna be readily available? No, probably not. So this is one of those ones where you don't need to gatekeep it because nobody can really find it. But if they could, it is very, very good. So it's another coconut fragrance. Surprise, the two fragrances that are blue colored here both have coconut very prominently. There's also salt, lemon, cypress, cashmeran, and sandalwood as well in here. Tropical, fresh, a little bit sweet, great for summertime, helps set you apart. It does smell higher quality when you compare it to Guess Indigo over here. But I would say that if you like this, you'll probably like that, and vice versa as well. It's not super close to Le Beau. If anything, if you were gonna compare it to another fragrance, it's a little bit closer to Fusion DC from Issey Miyake, which that one is still available, and that one is pretty cheap. It's not the exact same as that. I would, between the two, prefer this one, but it is one of those deals where if you really like this, you could get Fusion DC, and it's probably gonna scratch the same itch for you and be a lot more affordable. But yeah, Boss Bottle Pacific, great summertime fragrance. It does help you stand apart, and it has a little bit of that sunscreen feel to it, but not too much. It's a really nice one. Alexander Jablonski, 1656 says, I have never thought I'd say this, but Phantom, the basic silver one from Paco Rabanne. At first, it smelled like a bathroom, but as it could mancerate for a year, I tried it again, and it's not bad. Opening is still too much, but it dries down to this smooth, woody, and vanilla fragrance that just pleases noses of those around you. All right, let's go ahead and give it a spray here. I will say it's been a minute since I have sprayed Mr. Robot out. So this one has lavender and vanilla very prominently. There's also lemon zest off the top. It has apple, patchouli, and vetiver as well. To be fair though, like all the hate aside toward Phantom, it is a really good crowd-pleasing fragrance if that's what you're looking for. It's vanilla forward, maybe a little bit too sugary off the top for some people, the way the lavender kind of punches you with that vanilla when you first spray it on. But it's got like a touch of creaminess to it. The woods are very modern in the way they come across. They're clean, they're easygoing. And in the air, it's something that most people are gonna like he points out. If you really like fragrances, you can probably find something else that's a little more interesting for you that still works for the people around you. But if you really enjoy Phantom, who cares? Wear Phantom. It's better to wear something that makes you happy than to just say, oh, I can't wear it because somebody else said that it sucks. Like, who cares? Then we have Kevin 073 who says, I'll go with Sunshine Man from Amouage. Doesn't get mentioned with the heavy hitters of the brand, which is true, but it's great in its own right. Essentially, it's a barbershop fragrance done Amouage style. Performance is excellent, more suited to mature tastes, but man, superb. So unfortunately, this one is also discontinued. You can buy it as of right this minute on Amouage's own website. Apparently they found some old stock and put it up for sale. It's like 380 bucks a bottle, so if you want some, you can find it there. It's kind of rough if you're a person who likes to shop at discounters, because this one used to be available at discounters for like 115 bucks or something like that, but it's been sold out for a minute. I actually low-key love Sunshine Man. Like, I really, really like this. Even though I love this stuff, I am not saying that it's gonna work for you. So don't, take how much I like this as like, oh, I gotta go blind buy it. I gotta go spend 400 bucks and pick this up. Don't do that. But I really, really, really enjoy it. It has this kind of like boozy aspect to it. It does have definitely like a somewhat classically masculine feel to it as well. There's lavender in here, tonka and vanilla that gives it this kind of deep sweetness, and then immortelle and citrus off the top, which gives it like an aromatic green aspect also. Really like it. Mine is aged, so mine has this like deeper color to it. And when I first got it, it was more like bright, kind of yellowish. Now it's this almost like brandy color to it. Really enjoy Sunshine Man. Unfortunately, not sticking around, or hasn't stuck around, but I dig it, so I agree with you. Brendan Fry 04, Jean-Paul Gaultier Le Beau is criminally overshadowed by Le Beau Le Parfum. It's versatile and just generally easier to wear than Le Parfum. So I will say that I think if you're going for just like straight up versatility, that Le Beau is more versatile than Le Beau Le Parfum. Because Le Beau Le Parfum, if you're trying to wear that in like middle of summer, I think it's probably a bit too much. You're gonna get too much of that sweetness coming across. It can just be a little cloying, might not work out so well. Whereas this one, even though it does have that sweetness, it's a little fresher, so easier to pull off. Now, of course, you could say, well, Paradise Garden, you could wear that. That's true. But he specifically said it's overshadowed by Le Parfum, so that's what we're going with. It's also a big compliment puller, like Le Beau Le Parfum, so you don't miss out on that really. I would say for me personally, if I'm talking fall, winter, I'm gonna go Le Parfum over Le Beau. But if somebody out there was wanting to buy a fragrance in the Le Beau line, and they didn't wanna buy all three or two of them, because they're kind of doing the same thing in different ways, but still very similar, then the original Le Beau would probably be a better pickup for more people than Le Parfum, so it makes sense. Money Parhar says, Givenchy Gentleman Eau de Toilette Intense. And I wanna say that Gentleman Boisé, that one came up. This one came up. A lot of the gentleman fragrances came up. And for the most part, the gentleman fragrances are really well received if you're talking about people within the fragrance community, right? Obviously, compared to the big fragrance lines out there that are selling, they're not that hyped. By that, I mean myself, the Y line, Dior Sauvage, Bleu de Chanel, Aqua de Jo, all that stuff is selling way more than anything in the gentleman line. But even if we're talking about just people who are into fragrances, if we're talking the gentleman line, Reserve Privé, that's typically the one that gets talked about the most, right? So it's almost like Reserve Privé, get that one. You don't need to get any of the others. That's how it comes across sometimes. But Eau de Toilette Intense, Boisé, Eau de Parfum, even the original Eau de Toilette, they're all really solid too in their own ways. Some maybe more so than others, but still. And I personally love the Eau de Toilette Intense. I think this stuff slaps. It's a little bit similar to Dior Homme Eau, which is discontinued, has been for a while. And this one has a blue iris note. So, you know, it's a little bit fresher, but it still has that creamy, sweet iris aspect that so many people enjoy from the line. Makes it a little easier to wear, something you could pull off in spring really well, during fall, maybe even summer, depending on where you're going, what you're doing. Just a great release. And last but not least, we have Walter Barnaba 487, who says, Prada Luna Rossa Ocean Le Parfum, my favorite release this year so far that I've tried, which actually makes me happy to read that, you know, this is something that brings you great joy. It's maybe, you know, not my favorite release of the year, but that's fine. So no breakdown wise, pretty simple. You have lemon in there, saffron, and amber extreme, along with oak. And if you see that note breakdown and you think to yourself, does that make me think of ocean? I don't think it does. We're on the same page there. Yeah, it's kind of a woody, sweet fragrance. Also has a fresh aspect to it, especially when you first spray it on. So that's gonna tie it in a little bit with the Luna Rossa Ocean line. And it is really versatile. You can wear this daytime or evening. I think for myself personally, it'd be more fall, winter, maybe early spring as well. But I wanted to feature this one because for Walter, this stuff works. It is fantastic, it's underrated. And even if maybe some other people didn't fall in love with the fragrance, for them, it is a hidden gem of sorts. And there ain't no shame in that. So there we go, guys, 12 different fragrances that you guys think are completely underrated. Thank you all for hanging with me. Again, if you want to take part in a future video, check out the community tab. Stay safe out there, guys. See you tomorrow with another fragrance video. See you.